about a week after moving into this cold, dark 70s prefab council flat. I decided to watch some scary YouTube videos on my first night to pass the time, but I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off. Even Bella, the resident 20-year-old staffy, lying right next to me, snoring loudly, couldn't ease my nerves. As I waited for an ad to load, I heard a muffled noise coming from the hallway, like someone was creeping around trying to be quiet. My curiosity got the better of me, so I went to investigate. I cautiously opened the door, but there was nothing there. I looked down the hallway and it was empty. Just as I was about to close the door, I caught a glimpse of something out of the corner of my eye. It was a short figure dressed in a robe. It looked like an old-fashioned monk, slowly making his way up the stairs towards me. I closed the door with a chill running all through my body and looked at Bella, still fast asleep. I wanted to escape through the window and abandon my belongings, but being on the second floor made it impossible. So I took a deep breath and opened the door again, hoping it was just my imagination. To my horror, the figure had cleared the darkness of the stairs and reached the little window at the top. In the dim light, I could now make out more details. He was old, with thick, greenish, wrinkled skin, hunched over with a black pointed hood over his head. He looked sad and lost, scanning the floor as if searching for something. I felt a sudden wave of fear come over me. I closed the door again and tried looking for my phone, but it was off. I couldn't understand why. It had always been reliable, but like any device in this building, it now regularly shuts down even when it's fully charged. Before my phone could boot up, I heard the footsteps again, still slow, but a bit louder now and closer. I looked around the room in a panic, trying to figure out what to do. Suddenly, Bella woke up and snapped me out of it, barking loudly. My heart was pounding. The footsteps seemed to stop right outside the door. I could feel the presence of the old man just outside, as if he was standing there, listening. I focused on calming Bella down and sat in silence for a few minutes, trying to collect myself. I didn't hear him leave, and nothing else happened that night. But this flat continues to let us know we're not alone. I've even caught similar hooded figures watching us from the hallway on my phone's camera, but nothing as clear and real as my first encounter that night. At the time, I was 15 and had a foster brother same age. He was my foster parents' kid, and we used to play basketball all day every day. Those were the days when going home at dusk was normal. It was a Saturday, and I had gone home before it got dark. I had spent all day in the sun. I was hungry and exhausted. My brother stayed with his friends that day. Sometimes he would go hang out with them at their house and come home later or get dropped off. On this particular night, my foster father passed by my room to tell me my brother called, and he was at the park waiting for me. As he passed my room, he never made eye contact with me or even stopped as he said it. I figured my brother must have been waiting on me, so I got up and headed out the house. When I get to the park, there's no one at the basketball court. The court was next to the street, so the lights helped a bit. As I went deeper into the park looking for him, I noticed the birds were randomly flying from the grass and were squawk at me. This scared me a bit. I started getting an eerie feeling as I went deeper into the park and was barely able to see. I was thinking to myself, someone or something can creep up on me, and I won't be able to react. I eventually decided to walk on the road next to the park and look for him one last time. I decided it would be faster if I just called his name out. So I yelled his name out twice and heard nothing. I started getting this dark feeling and wanted to just run back home. All of a sudden, I saw someone walk out the shadows and wave at me. It looked like him, so I started jogging towards it. As I got close to him, he turned around and walked back into the park. I kept my eye on him, but as I got closer, it vanished a few feet away from me. I jumped out of my skin and sprinted home. When I got back home, I saw my brother in the living room. I asked him how long he has been home. He said around 15 minutes. I asked him why he wasn't at the park. He told me that he went to a friend's house. Then I asked why he called for me to go to the park. He said in a blank face, "I didn't do that." I went upstairs to ask my foster dad, why did he send me to the park? When I asked him, he told me that he was sleeping the whole time and just woke up a few minutes before I came in. As I look back at our interaction, I really never saw his face when he asked me to go to the park. To be honest, his voice was even different. I just saw a man walk by and told me to go to the park. A few days later, I heard something calling my name at home. I had just come home from school and my brother was at the park. It called my name outside my door, like if someone was hiding. I didn't react. Then it yelled my name louder. I freaked out and jumped out my window. After that, I became more cautious. I didn't like being home alone anymore. I would spend it at a friend's house until my parents got home from work. I told my brother about it, but he was skeptical. I eventually got adopted by another family. I'm currently 31 years old, and I still keep in touch with him. I was asking him about my experience, and he told me after I left, weird stuff would happen. I can't remember clearly, but he blurted it out that the house was haunted or something. I am still shaken up over this, but let me give you a bit of background. The town this park is in has a bit of history with the Civil War and has a few places that may be haunted as well. The park is the only place I went. Anyways, the reason I say it's haunted started in the beginning of this year. I was hanging out with some friends around midnight at my place and had nothing better to do. We had watched a few movies, but as we played a card game, one of my friends mentioned the park. He had some weird experiences there. It was cool to hear, so we agreed to go check it out after the card game. It was around 1:45 a.m. when we finished the card game. We were all bored now. We had nothing to do, so my friend mentioned the park again. We decided to go to cure our boredom, to see if the rumors were true. We all packed into the car, drove to the park, and parked by a funeral home that was nearby. One of my friends immediately chickened out and stayed in the car, while my other friend and I went down the hill to the seesaws. Let me give you a small description of what the park had. There were 4 sets of swings nearby a wooded area, 2 sets of seesaws near a stairway going down the hill, a merry-go-round that was in the middle of all the equipment of the park, and a small basketball court to the right of the park, a baseball field to the left of the park, and 2 strange old buildings over the hill near the baseball field. It looked creepy as well. There was also a slide or two, but back to the story. My friend and I were walking near the baseball field to just walk around and see if anything happens. Well, we didn't know at the time, but when we took pictures around the park, my friend had caught what looked like a figure in it. My friend, who was in the car the entire time, got out to shout at us to run back up. He saw a long black shadow begin to follow us without our knowledge. My friend and I obviously were freaked out and ran back to the car. As we passed the first swing set to our left, we noticed one swing that was moving without any wind being present. It was weird, but scary. We went back to my house to try to take our minds off it. My friend who took the photo showed us the picture the next day. It was long, dark, hooded figure standing by one of the baseball fields. I still can't believe we didn't see this thing following us. I can't explain what my friend saw, but he gets pale in the face when talking about it. I haven't been back since, as I don't want to be attacked by anything paranormal. I'm a lifeguard at a water park in Las Vegas. We always brag about how, unlike our competition, we have had 0 casualties at the current location. But weird stuff always happens, like tubes will appear in the pool after we just took them all out and stacked them. Chairs will move around after we just sorted them. Wet footsteps on concrete when no one was wet. My coworkers joke that we don't get paid enough to fight demons. It was just a joke to us, but not to our supervisors or managers. They always made excuses, for example, the wind, or I moved it, or they're my prints. They always get angry at us and say that someone could overhear us and make a complaint. They even went as far as to threaten us with a defamation lawsuit if we talked about it on social media. Weird, right? If the park wasn't haunted, why would they care so much about us talking about it? I never cared at the time, since I believed my supervisors and managers. Maybe they did move the chairs, or they dipped their feet in the pool and walked away. That was until last month. It was around 10 p.m., and we just finished cleaning the park. I had to stay later than usually, since I was getting a ride from my supervisor, Ryan. We were one of the few people left in the park, so we had to do the final walkthrough just to make sure everything was clean. We only had a flashlight and a few light posts illuminating our path around the park. We were walking by some slides when I hear a woman say, "Hello?" I looked at Ryan, who didn't seem to hear it. Then we heard her again. "Hello?" I freaked, and Ryan, again, didn't seem to hear it. "Did you not hear that?" I said to Ryan. He shrugged and continued walking. I stopped and said, "I didn't want to do the walkthrough with him." He rolled his eyes and said, "If I didn't, I am refusing to work, which isn't a good thing to say to your supervisor." He told me I was probably just hearing things. I got a hold of myself and continued walking, as we started getting to the back of the park where the light posts were dimmer. It was much quieter since we were further from the running water and the slides. Ryan and I started talking about college and what we were going to do when the season ends, when I heard it again, but it sounded closer this time. "Hello? Anyone there?" She sounded very confused and tired. I jumped this time, but Ryan did not care at all. I was so freaked out I started feeling nauseous. I wanted to go home, but Ryan was my ride. I had to stay, but what happened next still haunts me. After I heard the voice, we both heard the sound of someone climbing out of the lazy river soaking wet. No one else is here. If they were, they would be in the office. No one should be swimming. Ryan was so he thought a lifeguard snuck into the river. He turned around and started yelling, "What the hell, go home, this isn't fun." He froze. I said a quick prayer, then turned around. There was a lady, soaking wet, wearing a park shirt with our logo on it, but the logo looked very 2000s. I know what our shirts look like since I stand in the shop all the time to get some AC. I have never seen that shirt. She was hunched over and her hair covered her face. She spoke. "Hello, can you help me?" Ryan grabbed my arm and we bolted to the office. Lifeguards weren't allowed inside the office ever, but he let me come inside. He pulled one of the managers into the supply room and shut the door. Another supervisor started asking me if I was okay, since I was breathing heavily and couldn't speak. But I nodded, yes. The manager and Ryan came out of the room. Ryan grabbed his stuff and told me, "Let's go." We got in his car. He said we needed to stop by the gas station first. When we pulled in, he told me to type my address in his phone while he pumped gas. When he got in the car, I broke the silence. "What happened?" He turned the car on and started driving. "I can't tell anyone, it's like a park secret, but I'll tell you if you swear you won't tell anyone." I swore. Back in 2002, before this location of the park was built, there was a park on the Strip. It was the only water park in Vegas. We only had one casualty, and it was a lady who came in with her family. She got drunk and went into the lazy river where she sank to the bottom of the river. Since there were so many tubes, the lifeguards didn't see her and she drowned. That's why we have so many lifeguards for the river and why our tubes are see-through. "So was that her?" he said. "Yeah." "Why is she here?" I asked. "I don't know. She's probably confused. She's always asking for help." "So, you did hear her?" I said. "Yeah, but everyone does when you're in the park late at night. It's a whole different story if you see her." I asked. "What happens if you see her?" "Nothing, but it's scary." The car ride was silent the rest of the way. I still work at the park, but Ryan talked to the managers and convinced them to let me work only morning shifts. Ryan quit recently due to college.